Well, we've got a few minutes to go, but croaky voice as usual. Let's hope somebody comes on and just says hi. I'd like to be able to set this up as a regular feature where a few of us could get together and have a chat or talk about flying and take it in turns to follow each other's live streams, because it's the only way that X-Plane is going to start taking notice. The fact there are helicopter pilots available, and it shouldn't have been called X-Plane, it should have been called X-Simulator or something along those lines, because it should incorporate all types of flying machines. And helicopters, we're in the minority, but the work that people are doing on them is just so fantastic. I think we need to acknowledge that and make the developers aware that X-Plane does also include X-Helicopters. Now I've set a couple of different windows up. I've got an OBS window here where I've got a small window and I can see live chat on there, and I've also set up my normal window so that the chat appears as well. So I'm hoping that if I drop that down I'll still be able to broadcast and maybe see a better picture, but obviously the very first person that comes on live, if there are going to be any, maybe the helicopter community is so much smaller than what I expected. Just the word "I" will make my day. I was on earlier doing some tests and somebody came on, so yeah, I do know it's being seen. And I picked the AB 412 or the Bell 412 just because it's going to be an easy helicopter to fly around, and maybe you know, the chat is the main thing, not the helicopter. This has been well reviewed and well done, and lots of us love using it. But there again, we also have a few questions maybe we can ask each other as we go along. So anyone that's catching up on this afterwards, hopefully we might have some answers to some questions. Certainly me being new to this is a big learning curve, I'm going to say. We're approaching the time when it should go live. I know I've been running it live for a little while. It'd just be interesting to see if anyone logs on and says hello in the meanwhile. This isn't water, by the way, this is vodka. It's one of those strange things, everyone knows about my dystonia and my shakes, that when my voice starts to tremble, I'm in a fortunate position that if I have a drop of vodka, my vocal cords level out and I don't get the tremble in my voice. Obviously there's a trade-off between actually being able to stand up, falling over and actually talking, but I've always been one for being able to talk, so it gives a good excuse. Now I might jump between the windows now and again, and the sort of information I was looking for, if anyone comes on, is things like the volumes to set in OBS so that my voice is still heard over the top of the whine of the engine. And obviously if anyone's there with any questions, I've got plenty of questions I want to ask other people, it would be great. But if the X-Plane community, helicopter community that is, you know, live streams are not the things, maybe on YouTube, it might be that it's got to be done on Twitch. You know, when I did iRacing on Twitch, we would have 1,000+ viewers watching each race as we were going around in real time, and we'd have comments coming on and be able to talk to the drivers. You know, if you want coming up behind somebody, get out the way, or you know, I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. iRacing really have this side of things absolutely sussed out, and I think the flight sim community is only just getting to the stage where the idea of more than one person in the cabin, or sharing a cabin, or sharing a flight, is just coming off. And certainly I don't think any of the developers have really done it. I did see a video a little while ago where somebody, I think in VR, had two people in the same aircraft basically operating and looking at the controls and looking in each direction. But I think in the future it would be a wonderful thing if you were able to share the flight with somebody else. Now, again, being new to this, maybe this has already been done. Maybe because I'm on the helicopter side, maybe on the airplane side, there's already people sharing long haul flights, or somebody's the navigator or somebody's doing that. But it's not something I've seen too much of. But the sort of business that I come from, I was a managing director of quite a few companies, and I suppose the lesson that I learned from all the years of doing or being a managing director is you just keep pushing, and eventually people start listening. And one of the things that, you know, I'm going to say here is we're a small minority of the helicopter community, and the only way we're going to get heard is by doing things like live streaming, more videos up there, YouTube picking up on the fact that, you know, we've got more subscribers. I mean, I'm absolutely chuffed. I asked for 50 subscribers a little while ago. I'm at something like 73, and I just can't believe that that's something that I've achieved so far. Now, if you're frugal or somebody like that, where you're doing an update right across the community, which is, you know, I don't think there's anybody better. I love watching the frugal stuff. It's he's got a great speaking voice. He enthuses people when he talks, and it's certainly something I'm not going to be able to do that way. But certainly it would be good to see that. Right, I see somebody's come on, David. Hey mate, nice to see you at Shoreham. I live in Brighton, go there most days. I live in Edenbridge, not too far away, so I'm not sure what sort of lag you're going to get on what we're seeing at the moment, David, but certainly when I ran it on another PC earlier, I was amazed at the difference in time between speaking and reaction. One of the things I was used to on the iRacing side was we'd have 30 cars racing simultaneously on the same track. Oh, don't know if you can see that, but my monitor's just decided to tell me it's been on too long. And we could do it in real time. You know, we could actually race 20 or 30 cars with full physics, talk to each driver, you know, arrange pit stops. We could even change drivers in the car. And one of the things I was going on about earlier was that in the X-Plane community, and I always call it X-Plane, but I think it should be X-Simulator community, you know, we should be able to share cabins. Now, I'm not sure if that's true on airplanes yet, if people are doing it. I saw a demo of a VR experience where two people were in the same cabin doing stuff, and it was great. But I do think that it would be great if they started thinking about a navigator, a second person in the cockpit, so that we could share the experience as we go round. Oh, Fred Blogs has come back on. Why did you have any issues installing Orbix scenery? No, for me, I have to say Orbix, although I'm one of those people that write to the developers, and I wrote to the developers about the floating buildings, and I haven't made a great big song and dance about it, but the floating buildings is unacceptable to me. So if you're at, you know, 100 feet, the scenery is fantastic. If you're a helicopter pilot and you drop down to land, to see a building floating up in the air, like in Brighton, if we fly off to Brighton in a minute, and see it floating and not following the contours, I just wonder how a developer cannot get the mesh right, that their own buildings are floating above the mesh. It just seems wrong. Hello Bill, thanks for coming in. Obviously it's working. I'm not so sure of the delay that might be going on, but you know, this is my first go at doing anything like this. I was explaining earlier, I was a big iRacer, and the iRacing community is huge, and we would have, you know, 1,000 or 2,000 people drop in to watch a race at a weekend. And coming to X-Plane, because of problems I had with shakes and various other things, and I couldn't race anymore, you know, I'm astounded at how small the helicopter community is. And one of the things I'd like to do is, I'm at home now, I'm medically retired, is push forward and try and get more people involved in actually flying helicopters and doing some stuff. So let's get the joystick out. Sorry if I shouted in the mic just then, I forgot that the mic was right in front of me. The other point I made a little bit earlier, there's some great guys out there, you know, Frugal, what a brilliant, the stuff he does is brilliant, but it's right across the board. Very little of it is helicopter. I posted up a few things about the X-Plane community when they came online and said, this is what we're going to be doing with X-Plane in the future, isn't it wonderful? And as somebody pointed out, I said they never mentioned helicopter once. Somebody said they did about tail rotor, and then another person said, but there was a poster in the background of a helicopter. You know, I just wonder how much notice they're actually taking of us, and I'm one of these sort of people that would like to push it forward, that if people like Sergio and stuff like that, you know, they're doing it all on their own. There's a huge amount of names out there who are running the Facebook forums and things like that. You know, I just wish more of us could get together and sort of push this forward. So let's have a quick take off. I picked what I call the AB 412, and some people call the Bell 412 from Shoreham, literally because I know I can take off and pretty much leave the collective where it is, and it will just go where I point it. Where if anyone's watched my videos lately of the Mini 500, it is the best buzz, I have to say, in VR that you'll ever experience. It's fantastic, but not for this type of thing to think about chatting to people or see things come up. You'll be hitting the ground all the time. So let's have a look. Bit of a drastic takeoff, because anyone that's followed any of my blogs knows that I've been working on a homemade collective for a while, and we'll head off to Brighton over that way in the distance. And things have not gone smoothly. I had this shifter from Thrustmaster with the Hall effect sensor, and I just assumed that would give me the best resolution over an encoder. Sawed it up, hot glued it together. It's working, but it's not right. And for the very first time the other day, bear in mind I just recently had to retire and the money's not great, the wife just said, for Christ's sake, stop pissing about, buy the right stuff. Because when I used to iRace, I was working and being a managing director, I got the best stuff that I could possibly get. I had a triple screen system with just butt shakers on the bottom so you could feel the curbs if you hit them, and various other things. And the idea of this Wonky joystick, I've had this joystick so long, and it's got a couple of glitches to it, and it's going to go someday. And I've been looking at the Puma system, but you know, just being at home at the moment and only the one income coming in, the thought of spending that sort of money is horrendous. But then going down the Leo Bodner route, which I've done recently, and managed to get it to work even with the shakes. I managed to get the wires in, and I've got a collective with a button box on the top that I can use. It's not cheap either. You know, you add it up at the end of the day, and by the time you've bought all the bits, you end up with what I've got, a plastic bicycle pump with tape wrapped around it, a plastic box glued on the end. I use CH pedals most of the time, but you know, like all these things, to spend £1,000 plus on a helicopter setup, and then I've not tried one. I don't know what it feels like. Maybe what I've built so far is actually more suited to me. So who knows? One of the questions I was going to ask, if anyone knows the answer to, at the moment I'm flying this in a windowed mode for the X-plane, or X-helicopter I'm going to call it, and I've got a little text window on the side, which it seems to be working well. If it looks smooth to you lot out there, just say it looks okay and the sound is okay. I know I don't have to go back into my scenery, my OBS setup and make any changes. Oh, Fred said he got the Mini 500 today. She's a handful, but managed a couple of landing, loads of crashes, great fun. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I wrote to the developers of the Mini 500 V Skylabs, and they have been the most helpful people so far that I've ever dealt with to do with this side of it. Now, because of this condition I've got called dystonia, where I'm losing this fine motor control of my hands, my neck, and whatever, which is why I'm retired. He recommended that everything be left at 0 on the, well, I call it the rates for the joystick setting, things like that. And that would give you the most realistic flight that you could. Well, if anyone did actually watch my flight on the Mini 500 between the trees and everything, one of the things I've got to mention is that that wasn't the setup that he described. I had to put the payload of the helicopter up to, I think it was something like 450 kilos. It was 3/4 round on the payload setup, so that it was actually heavier underneath. And I had to go into, it wasn't the joystick curves, it was another setting, and put on it 45%, because my shakes that I get on my hands and that were enough at low flying to actually put it into the ground when I was flying around. So I've had to tinker with that myself, and certainly if you've just got it, Fred, have a look at the put the payload weight up, makes a big difference. There's lots of things. It's a new helicopter that the developers say it's experimental, and good on them for doing it. Very bit of an itchy nose. It's going to change. I think there's going to be lots of changes. I mean, for me, I love doing autos. It's something that, for me, helicopters and autos, because of my RC radio control background, you know, that was the thing that gave us the thrill. I love doing it. Autos in that Mini 500 were virtually impossible with the standard setup, and in fact I managed it for the first time the other day, and again it was by increasing the payload. And the way I actually entered the auto was by using a fuel cut-off. So I set one of the switches on my collector so that when you pressed it, it was a fuel cut-off, which made it a much smoother entry into the auto. But it does what I described in one of the blogs or one of the Facebook groups. It used to be called in the old days mast slapping, where if you had a certain amount of, even in a real helicopter, too much collective, too much forward on, the dampers would actually bang and the blades would bang. And the Mini 500 is, well, to be honest, it's an absolute sheep to get into an auto at the moment. I have done it. I've had a couple of reasonable ones from about 2,000 feet. Cut the fuel off, I set one of the switches off. You need plenty of forward speed when you're going into it, and as soon as you go into it, you've got to be ready to pull back on the collector. If not, there's the most god almighty bang, and it's nose down straight into the ground. And I don't think it's just the fault of Skylabs. He's working with this new flight model, so we'll have to see. You know, you never know. But glad to hear you got it. It's a great little helicopter. Like the Cadbury, I did all those, well, 3 or 4 videos with Pilot Yellow about the, because I've been following him on YouTube for a long while. And one of the things I would say is that, you know, don't be afraid to write to these people and ask permission to do stuff. I wrote to Pilot Yellow, and he was really helpful. He gave me all the locations where they fly. You know, wished me all the best. We spoke about training helicopter pilots in VR. You know, he had how to go, that type of thing. A lot of, but these people, they really are. Yeah, I suppose the word is amenable. You know. Well, good luck, Fred. I hope it works out right. I'm sorry if we're just flying around and it's non-stop chatter from me. Just in passing, could somebody... Does the voice sound okay over the sound of the helicopter? Is it stuttering? Are we seeing let's say in the distance, if I'm flying now, the green hills in the distance, are they mushed out or is it sharp? It's very difficult for me to know these things, you know, I will spend a long time setting it up and getting it right. So if anyone could give me some feedback on the sound quality and what the image looks like, I'd greatly appreciate it. And you know what, I'm going to even shut up for a while and just have a quick drink. You might notice there with the drink, that's one of the downsides to this dystonia thing I've got, is that most times I have to drink out of a straw because my arms shake so much. It's one of the weirdest sort of, I'm going to say it's like MS, it's a bit like a lot of these things they've got no answer for, and it's a very strange thing that if you want to hear a story, might as well tell one. Thanks for letting me know voice levels are okay. You know, I was a martial arts instructor for, well, really, I started when I was 14 and in London, in Hackney, and I ended up with three clubs in Hackney that were taught martial arts. And I thought that going around with your arms pumped up and because you were training so hard and shaking was the norm. And I used to race radio controlled cars on it. And it's one of those sort of things, when you look backwards you realise there was a problem there from day one. And I've been very lucky, hope you don't mind me talking about a problem I've got, is that I'd had this problem, they call it essential tremor first of all, which is shaking of the hands and not being able to hold things in a steady position. It's wonderful, it means I can't do any do it yourself or anything like that. And I was very fortunate that it seems I'd had it really from a very young age, from about sort of 18 onwards, even though I never knew. I was always so pumped up, I was at the gym all the time, I was 3 clubs a week running martial arts and that sort of thing, and I thought it was the norm, you know, that was it. And then when I took up radio control helicopter, people kept saying to me, you know, why are your thumbs shaking? Why can't you hold the box? And of course that's when it started, sort of 11, 12 years ago, that it's a very slow progression because I had it when I was so young. It's been a slow progression. If you get this thing called dystonia, let's just say when you're 40 or 45, it's like Parkinson's, it's a horrible disease. And, you know, I can only thank my lucky stars it wasn't Parkinson's, and also that because I've had it for so long, it's a very, very slow progression. But I do have to do some silly things, you know, I've got a lot of rates on the helicopter. This is a lovely big helicopter to fly around. The bigger they are, the easier they are. The Mini 500 was an eye-opener the first time I flew it, but I think I've got the sus on it now. But it's just one of those things that unfortunately it ended up in the end that I couldn't use a keyboard without double typing. I was managing director of a company and my team were looking after me. They'd been with me a long while. We used to, strangely enough, my old business used to be selling astronomical equipment, telescopes and that, and I ran a very famous business called Broadus, Clarkson Fuller, and that became a company called Telescope House, which is very famous for supplying astronomical equipment across the world. And when my partner died, the German side of the business, who was still with all the time, came in, and they were just absolutely brilliant. They realised after a couple of years I was at the stage I couldn't actually do a full day, or I had these days where you end up in bed for a couple of days, a bit like MS, you can't move. And I managed to get out, and that's when I decided, right, can't fly anymore, can't do radio controls anymore, but I can set X-Plane up that my shakes, if I put enough rates on, I'm going to be able to fly for a few years. So that's why I've sort of took to it as I am. And I always feel a bit guilty that there's so many people out there been doing it for so long, and I'm sort of saying things like, let's do this, let's do that, and they've been saying it for years, you know, and I'm sort of duplicating what they think and what they do. But it would be lovely that we could get a group of us together once a week. We took it in turns. Somebody ran a blog. We just all got on there, had a chat, you know, whether it was a Friday night at, you know, 9 o'clock or something that suited other people. A lot of the aeroplane community seem to do it. Us as helicopter pilots don't seem to. So, you know, it would be nice to, let's say, keep pushing that forward, because I'm happy to do it. I've got the spare time. I'm gonna, you know, learn as much as I can about this whole new thing. It's completely alien to me. As I mentioned earlier, the iRacing thing was set up that literally on Twitch you could log on, you could have your lap position, where you were, your lap timings, you could have voice to each other, voice to individual people, all in real time. No delays at all. You know, if you hit a car, it was instant. One of the things on here is, when I tested this earlier, it was about 40 seconds before it appeared on the laptop I was testing it on below. So, you know, it's a learning curve for all of us. You know, a fly around the gentle countryside I'm doing at the moment while I'm babbling on this first one. I greatly appreciate everyone that listens and answers the questions when I do on the forums, being so new to it and that. But you know, we should have a thing called X-Helicopter. You know, cut out all the bits to do with aeroplanes that are slowing the engine down that we need, and they should come up with a version called X-Helicopter, purely helicopters. It'll be a tiny little portion of the code required for the rest of the stuff, and sell it on its own. It would be great. Don't know if anyone's going to volunteer and write to them and tell them that, but maybe I'll do that and make a suggestion. You know, I've tried lots of helicopters. I'm a big DCS fan, but the very first thing I did was the Huey for DCS, and you know, I'm a big Huey fan. I can't wait for the Nimbus to come out, and I hope they've done a good job on it, because the Digital Combat Simulator Huey is wonderful. It's got fantastic sound. It works in VR straight off. You don't have to mess around. You don't have to do anything. It just works. And you know, we need that in X-Plane. We want to plug a VR headset in and not have to tinker and do this and that to try and keep the frame rates high. It should just work. You know, somebody should be out there listening and writing something for that. We can only hope that's going to happen in the future. But I gave up on the DCS at the moment, because being a combat simulator, the learning curve for doing it and taking part was more than the effort I was willing to put in at the time. I was having good and bad days, and so one of the things I would say is, you know, DCS, if you've got the time to do it, especially if you're, you know, a fighter pilot. You know, I've watched some of the missions these guys are doing where they meet up on a Friday night as a squadron and then fly a mission between them, and it's a bit like Armour 3. It's fantastic what they can do. We seem to have been lumbered with an X-Plane engine that is years and years old and was just never really meant the things that we're asking it to do at the moment. So I really do hope that the developers with their the work they're doing, you know, can cut down in some respects on the load of the CPU. I think you're absolutely right, Fred. I don't know how long you posted that up, but it just appeared on my thing. You know, the thing with the helicopters is, I think, and I wrote the V Skylabs about this, there should be two versions of a helicopter. You should have the Mini 500, what I call nutter helicopter for the experienced pilot, that I just loved once I got it set up. But then you should always have a second version of it supplied that is the soft, mushy version that a beginner can, you know, hover around and get some success straight away. One of the things, you know, I'll always talk about here is I jump into helicopter and I'm not really interested in navigation. I'm not interested in, you know, I know how to set heading hold, I know how to set a basic route. But really, you know, taking off and landing, flying low down, looking at the countryside, that's the bit that interests me. It's not the total simulation. You know, the Cabri, for instance, you know, I went through the start-up procedure and everything else and then just thought, you know what, I can't be bothered. I just want to get in it and fly it around nicely over this sort of countryside, which is looking better all the time. But I think you're absolutely right. Helicopter developers should be told they're all acting like the airplanes for absolute realism, and by doing that they're actually reducing the market for the new person coming into it. So if there were always two versions, the beginner's version, which, like this AB, you know, I'm flying one-handed, I haven't touched a collective since we took off. It's the easiest helicopter to fly in my library of helicopters, and it autos brilliantly, it looks great, I can't fault it, but a developer should supply something that a beginner can get success with straight away. In the industry I was in before, which is mentioned earlier, optics, you know, we had fully computerized telescopes that would find objects, give you guided tours of the nighttime sky, you could speak to it, they would listen, they would give you verbal commentary of the objects that you were looking at. And to give a beginner that instrument was completely the wrong thing. And the company I worked for used to run called Baldus Clarkson Fuller, and it was known as Telescope House. You know, quite often we had to talk people down from the wonderful all singing, all dancing thing, because we know that within a week or two they're just going to give up. It's not going to work. So helicopter developers, if anyone is listening on the development side, a lovely realistic version would be brilliant, and then a lovely soft, mushy, easy to fly around, give people some success immediately from taking off is really what's needed. So I don't know if everyone agrees with that. Yes, Tom, 429, love it as well, one of my favourite helicopters. You know, I've got a library of the helicopters that fly around. I've picked this one particularly this evening, the AB412, because I can fly it one-handed and talk at the same time, and you know, God knows where we are. I've just been chatting away and telling my story to the world, but there are some great helicopters out there, and the 429 is great, and the Dreamfall helicopter is a wonderful helicopter. You know, the detail and the work that the people put into it is fantastic. But again, the Dreamfall helicopter, I think, is a good beginner's helicopter. It's quite soft in its takeoff, but you know, we've got to be able to get them back on the ground. And you know, I have my own problems getting them back on the ground. As I've said before, I've got this problem where I will do a beautiful descent, you know, 100, 200 foot descent to a landing pad, and then as soon as I get to the landing pad, I then go into yo-yo effect, backwards and forwards, and I've done a couple of videos about this. It's a strange thing. If you're flying VR, it doesn't happen. As soon as I go to a flat screen, it does happen. So VR, I'm a big fan of. I've got it working really well and it's fantastic. But the bigger the helicopter, the bigger the mass, the bigger the disc, the easier they are to fly. And that was the same with radio control helicopters as well. You know, you gave a beginner one of these little electric helicopters that you can buy very cheaply. You know, some of them were very difficult to fly, especially before the electronic gyros came along. Before that, if you gave somebody what we used to call 60 size petrol driven helicopter with a big rotor span, you know, 1.2 meters or something like that, a meter diameter, easiest thing in the world to fly, wasn't affected by the wind, wasn't affected by anything. So that's my belief. Every helicopter should come with two versions, beginner's version and then the expert version for the person that wants to learn every switch, how you turn it on, how it flies and everything else. Do I take it, Tom, that you say any questions about the 429? Was it you that developed it? Ah, that explains it. Well, all I can say is well done. But same thing again for me. 429. Brilliant to fly, absolutely love it. But you know, to supply a setup for a beginner that would make it soft and mushy as well, I know it's free and it's a great download and everything else, something that the people didn't have to go into the X-plane setups and learn about, you know, doing curves and rates and that. It's an awful lot to take on board. Most of it I understood because of my radio control flying days, from setting up transmitters, and we would have to run V curves or exponential curves to make it less touchy in the centre than you know, at full rate, so that landing became a little bit easier. But you know, I don't know if it is possible for a developer to supply two versions of it, a soft mushy one and a lovely real hands-on helicopter as it should be. If anyone's watching the forum and has a question for Tom and wants to post it, you know, do put it up. This is the whole idea. Just while I fly around, I might actually switch my map program on in a minute to actually find out where I am, because I have no idea at all. I've got one question for you, Tom. You know, what is the time span for somebody developing a helicopter like that? Is it that long? You know, are we talking months, a year or two, or something that's always being developed and always being changed? And does also 2 years? Oh my god! Okay, right. So you must love it when X-plane come along and change things, and it's let's just say let's just change to physics to make it more realistic, so everyone that's built something, it doesn't fly. Well, looks like I've found the coast again, so let's head back down the coast, see where. And there's Shoreham. We're back to where we started. Oh my god! Right. Well, I've always said auto's my favourite. Now, one of the things with this 412, I've wanted to set a single switch up that would cut the engine. I've managed to do it on everything else, on the fuel valve, but this AB412, the only way that I've actually found I can actually do an auto, and we're going to have a go at one in a minute, is by literally hitting the two fire extinguishers here. So if somebody in the comments could tell me what it is that will actually just switch the engine off to do an auto from a single switch, I would greatly appreciate it. It's I have no idea where we are. With an auto you're not supposed to know, so let's hit the fire extinguisher, that one and that one. Drop the collective. Drop the nose. Let's see if we can get a 360 going. Oh, I see. I'm trying to read your comments just as I'm going into the auto, Tom. I do apologise. So I wonder if we're going to clear that road. Ah, throttles to idle. Okay. Can that be run off a single switch? Oh look, there's the green thing that I normally aim for right, let's do a run on auto here. Let's see if we can keep it going long enough, stretch it out as long as possible. Not going to be much left at the end. Sorry if I'm not reading the blog. No! Oh, God. Nearly made it in one piece. Sorry, let me just catch up on what Tom was saying. Well, 2 years is unbelievable, so well done, Tom. I'm going to try that throttles to idle. I'll look it up. With the 412, is it two throttles that have to be set on one switch, or would it be one? I don't know if you know. And just one other question for you, Tom. Is this something you did as a sideline, as a hobby, or was it something that you do as a living? You know, I've run into a couple of guys I've been speaking to online who do it for a living, and a couple of guys online who do it as a hobby, just for the thrill of doing it. Right, it can be one or two or none on the pull down menu. Oh, it's a hobby for you. So that means that my questions and you hearing it are actually quite good. So I'm going to run a quick test. I know this is going to sound really silly for me to try, especially if you're watching, but Tom, when I say the next word one, just say hi and it will give me an idea of the lag. So, one. God, that's nearly 30 seconds that you're behind what I'm doing. You know, and God, that just shows you what iRacing and everything managed to achieve on, or maybe it's just Twitch is that much faster and setting up, my God. So, you know, our correspondents are running around 30 seconds behind. Well, thanks for coming on board, Tom, for having a chat. I'm not going to say as a reward or whatever, because I use it anyway, but I'll actually do a run through on the 429 and maybe make a video or two of it over the next couple of weeks. I've got some other projects underway at the moment. This little Mini 500 from V Sky Labs, I've I've got to tame it. I've got to make it the easy helicopter, and I'm giving him feedback, and he's making changes as we go along or whatever. And that's great, because in some respects I'm the perfect person. I'm new to explain. I'm not a brilliant pilot at this. I don't know everything, and so some of the questions I've put to him, you know, have dumbfounded him, because he thought, well, obviously everyone knows that, but no, they don't. You know, I don't know. I've had to go searching and searching on YouTube for so many things, but as a community, you know, I'm probably a member of 4 or 5 Facebook groups, and everyone has been so friendly. It's been so positive. It's been great. You know, I put that plea out with my son a little while ago. It was quite funny, you know. 18-year-old, what are you doing, Dad? You know, how old are you? I'm 59 now. Getting involved in YouTube, you know, on a hobby where there's probably less than 500 people or so in the UK flying this. Who on earth's going to subscribe to your channel? And blow me, they did. And I couldn't be more pleased. So big thank you to everyone that did subscribe to the channel, and I'm hoping we'll be able to do this more often. Yeah, I'm always trying to post on Facebook, you know, asking silly questions and making silly replies. I'm one of these people that think sometimes people take things too seriously. You know, I took this up because I wanted to get on board, fly around, do autos, look at great scenery, fly between the trees and enjoy myself. I wasn't the person that was going to sit there and learn a helicopter inside out. I've been fortunate. I have flown real helicopters in my more affluent days, and I did have quite a few lessons, and I very quickly found out the only part of helicopter flying that interested me was taking off and landing. And my instructor, who was a member of my radio control helicopter club I used to run at Box Hill, if we used to pay for the fuel, he would give us lessons. And you know, hovering, low down, that's where the fun is. Long distance haulage, it's not for me. For some, you know, I agree that that's what they're going to enjoy doing and everything else, and good on them. But for me, jump in it, have a buzz round, couple of hours of an evening, you know, that's what I love. But thank Christ there's people like you that have actually spent 2 years developing something I can play with. So, you know, well done. You've been doing it 40 years, my God. Well, you know, I was flying radio control helicopters, you know, in the early 80s, before they, let's say, had solid state gyros, and I was, I'm going to say, one of the first, what they call 3D pilots over in the UK, where we were doing inverted, upside down, backwards flight, before the solid state gyros came along. And then solid state gyros came along, where literally you could put the tail of a radio control helicopter at 45 degrees and it would just stay there, and you could do whatever you wanted and it would just stay there. So I went through the early learning curves on that side, but on this side, flight simulation, it's all new. I was iRacing for, well, close on 11 years, so got an A licence in that. I was very good. I was in the top, I think, 1200 in the country, and then my shakes got so bad that half a second a lap ruined it all. So, you know, I'm on. Somebody once said to me, you do radio control, you then do radio control, car simulations on a PC, then you do flight simulations on a PC, then you do train simulations, and eventually you'll end up doing a tractor simulation. So I've still got a way to go before I get to the tractor, but who knows. I'll just go read a few more of the comments. Oh, I see, you were actually in it, so you know your stuff, that's right. Let's have a land. I'd be the last person to do a landing tutorial, but I think it's all. I mean, yeah, my collective's gone mad at the moment. So let's have a go. You said let's have a landing tutorial. The way that I will do this at Shoreham. I always like picking. I like Shoreham because it's got a number of features, and you might have seen it on the videos. These two radio masts, if you want to learn how to do figure eights, keeping the height nice and low, you can go in and out between these two. And there's a number of green patches, which you know, obviously for landing are great. So it gives you a good left and right. It's got a good couple of straight runways if you want to learn your tail control, which is very good. And then the other side of it, as you might have seen on the Mini 500 side, over the back there, that green dome, we'll just head that way before I do the landing. You come over here, head towards the car park. I'm going to keep it quite high, I'm not going down too low. Banking over, take your forward stick, and you can follow the path through on the right hand side of the dome, through the trees. But I won't go through the trees, I'm keeping it up. Then a hard left, there's another lovely gap between the trees there when you're at ground level. So we'd go forward through these trees, turn right, low level, then head out towards that little group of trees you see in front of us. And this is how I test how helicopters respond, or for me. Look for the brown mark on the ground, and I take, if I'm flying low, the right hand gap just on the side of that, because what you want to do is fly through there, put a hard turn on, and there's a gap. Making a bit of a mess up of this. There. That you would fly through on the way back. And we would fly through there. And I did it great on the Mini 500. I was so lucky. Then you throw a right. And then, believe it or not, over there between the trees there's a nice red marker, got the name of it, you know, wind thing I'm going to call it, and then back to the beginning again, where that would be one circuit for me, and I use that when I'm testing and flying helicopters as my standard. Strangely enough, Tom, what I've just done, I've built a throttle box, and I'm not using it at the moment. I've got them linked, but because of my condition I can't twist my wrist and pull my arm up and down. My left arm is actually supported in a metal bracket to hold it in place, so I can move it up and down. So on my button box I've just put a variable potentiometer that I can actually use with my thumb, which I'm going to use for throttles in the end anyway. So I haven't done that yet. It's there. I've got to get a big enough, I'm going to say, get a big enough knob so that it's easy to reach, but I can reach the two buttons easy enough, and I've got a four-way hat. I never posted the video of me making my button box because it was so embarrassing about getting the shakes, and I actually decided I wasn't going to show it because it was so bad. But what I've done is, instead of a twist grip throttle, on the black box at the end where I've got the two red buttons and the hat switch on the left hand side, I'm going to have a variable throttle there so that I'll be able to use that hopefully. So anyway, somebody said about landing, I do apologise going on. So let's have a look. Let's go back to where we started. Now, I love Orbix. They're fantastic. I think, as much as I moan, they've done a great job. But one of the worst things they did, they bloody put a helicopter on my favourite landing pad. that you can see there over on the just coming up to near the fuel tank. So that what I call the #1 pad, they stuck a helicopter on there, and I can't tell you how pissed I was that I wrote to them and said, you know, stick it anywhere over in the background. Why would you put it on that pad with the lights on and everything else? So I'm going to come in, gradually dropping the throttle down. Got a bit of the shakes today, but it's not too bad. I'm going to come round the back, and then you might see my terrible yo-yo effect. What I've got is I've just added about 4 clicks of forward on my stick, because I know that I don't want to get to a stationary position. If I get into a completely stationary, I get into a yo-yo effect. So I've added 4 clicks of forward on, and what I do, I'll come round here, and what I tend to have to do, I can't do the 3-foot hover, or very often I can't do the 3-foot hover and then drop down. It's got to be a bit of forward speed at the same time. So I've got 4 clicks on forward trim, quite or hard doing it on let's say flat screen compared to VR. So I'm a bit short there. I messed that up. We can jump forward. Oh, jump forward again. Yep, I reckon. Okay. I was just going to show the picture from outside as the perfect landing. Right, location impact. What controls are you using for throttles? Yeah, I've done that. Tom wants, do you have parked aircraft set up in X-Plane? Do you mean just the tick box that says show aircraft? So if I was at Gatwick, for instance, aircraft are there? Yes, I do. Yes. And the other thing I'm glad to hear is, Tom, that you're 66 and I'm 59. I'm starting to feel like a pup. Yeah, I do. I normally try and have that switched on. Now, I wasn't sure on the quality that this was going to be putting out, so it was one of the things I wasn't sure whether I was going to have to play with distance or with the curve or anything that way. I'm not sure if I show you. Hopefully you'll see this. Can you see the graphic screen on that I'm showing? Hopefully you'll see this. Can you see the graphic screen? Hopefully you're on the screen that shows what I've got set up as graphics. Ah, brilliant. Okay, so I'll untick the parked aircraft, which will hopefully you're on the screen that shows what I've got set up as graphics. Now take forever to load, no good. I'll untick the parked aircraft, which will. Ah, well, I'm going to say I thought 59 coming into a new hobby like this. I was going to be an old boy and everyone was going to be younger and telling me what to do. But you know what? Since I've said how old I was, although I feel older, everyone has come back and actually said they're older. So I'm obviously the young enthusiastic pup who's going to keep bothering everybody to see how it goes. But let's have a look. It'd be interesting to see. I hadn't thought of that, Tom, about unticking parked aircraft. And let's have a quick turn around here. Nope, she's still there. So for some reason, maybe I've got to reload the whole thing. I'm not sure. Parked aircraft on the orbit scene don't include the helicopter on the my favourite pad, as it were, there. So good try though. I never thought of that. And in fact, all the other aircraft are there as well in the background. So orbits of somehow put their aircraft down as a part of maybe the scenery. Let's have another go. You know, one of the things I would say is I'm a hovering fanatic. When I feel quite good and I've not got the shakes, hovering manoeuvres and doing all the tricks that I used to do on radio control helicopters, like nosing, hovering round a certain subject, or flying backwards, or tail first, is great. And that's why I did the video, if anyone watched it earlier, on using a radio control transmitter with X-plane, and I was actually flying the X-plane aircraft as if I was flying radio control ones. Missed it to the right, and it worked really well. And I mean, for 30 or 40 quid, I think it was 35 quid or something, that transmitter has been brilliant. Some of the outside shots I'm going to do on videos are actually easier to set up and do by putting the RC transmitter in than do it from the joystick or the keyboard or so on. So, you know, who knows on that. Anyway, I'm running out of breath. I can't thank you all enough for coming on, and at least people were there, people answered, and let's hope we can set another one of these up. And Tom, I'd love to do something on your helicopter. Maybe give me a personal message on any particular setups or anything like that. That would be wonderful. And I'll do that in the next few weeks, because I'm at home, I've got time, and hopefully we'll do this again, and maybe just build up the idea of a Friday night chat amongst people on different parts, and then somebody else could do one and show what they're doing and what they think that X-Plane are doing. You know, I've just cut it to the quick. I think X-Plane are doing brilliantly, but I don't think any of them are thinking about helicopters. I think that the idea of our side of things is such a small percentage, and it would be lovely if they got the idea that, you know, actually it's a growing community. Helicopters now, the graphic quality, I think because the low down scenery has got so good from people like Orbix, helicopters are suddenly becoming more popular. When we were dealing at 100 to 1,000 feet, we didn't care what it looked like. We were all using photo textures and stuff like that, and of course it looked fantastic. But then now you can get down and you're looking at the grass, and you know, you spin around here, a bit bumpy, don't care. You know, look at the grass textures and everything that they've done and got right there. And some Goodwood, for instance, was fantastic as well. And if we fly off, you know, it's good enough for low down helicopter flying now. All we need is for them to work out how to put the buildings flat on the ground. That would be it. So we go up. We're going to do one more auto, and then we're going to call it quits. And all I can say is thank you very much for everyone that posted a comment and took the time to watch. It's given me a good buzz doing it, and hopefully we'll do it again. Right, so let's cut the engine now. In a pretty nasty place to do it. Nose down. All those bells and whistles when they're all going. Being a big helicopter, there's plenty left normally at the bottom. Maybe not this time. I'm trying to get round to that little. You know what? I cheated. I pressed the wrong button. I didn't cut the engine. I just dropped the collector. I'm leaving it there. Thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Let's get together again sometime and try and make this a regular thing. And as usual, subscribe to my channel. Let's try and get to 100. My boy would be absolutely sick if I do. So that'd be great. Thank you very much anyway, and good night. Hope everyone has a really good week. And I'll stop speaking. Talk to you soon.